The camera opens on a vast, ancient desert under a blazing sun. The narrator's voice whispers, "We've been told that God created everything, the heavens, the earth, every creature. But what if that story is incomplete? What if something was left out?" The screen transitions to colossal dinosaur fossils, then cuts to mythical creatures like dragons and unicorns sketched in ancient books. The Bible's creation story seems selective. Dinosaurs, mythical beasts, where do they fit in the narrative of creation? The voice crescendos. What if the truth of creation is far more complex than we've ever imagined? The scene shifts to the days of creation as described in Genesis. On day 5, God filled the waters with creatures and made birds to soar across the skies. On day 6, the beasts of the earth appeared. Yet, there is no mention of massive dinosaurs that once roamed our planet. Why? The narrator questions. The screen shows an animated timeline juxtaposing the biblical story with the fossil record. Were they left out intentionally to preserve a timeline, or are they remnants of a pre-Adamic world too chaotic to reconcile with divine order? Enjoying the story? Like, subscribe, and share to support us. Let's continue. The story delves into the undeniable fossil evidence. The screen pans over museum exhibits showcasing enormous dinosaur skeletons. Millions of years ago, creatures larger and more fearsome than anything alive today ruled the earth. Fossils speak a truth we cannot ignore, yet Genesis is silent. Why would a text claiming to recount the origin of everything omit such a significant part of history? The narrator pauses as the screen shows a hand flipping through an old Bible. Does this silence reveal gaps in the creation story, or something more deliberate? Transitioning to mythical creatures, the scene shifts to ancient manuscripts and art. Cultures worldwide describe creatures like unicorns, phoenixes, and dragons. Are they purely imaginary, or echoes of beings that once existed but are now erased from history? The camera lingers on an old library filled with scrolls, their illustrations glowing faintly. What's striking is their similarity across civilizations. From China to Greece, these creatures appear in stories spanning millennia. Could they be based on shared memories of real beings? The focus turns to the theme of chaos versus order. The Bible's creation story emphasizes order, a structured world shaped by divine will. But not all of creation reflects that order. Creatures like the Leviathan and Behemoth embody chaos. Were they included to hint at forces beyond God's control? The narrator asks as the screen shows the Leviathan battling turbulent seas and fire-lit skies. Were these creatures symbols of rebellion or reminders of a pre-biblical chaotic time? The Leviathan story is explored in detail. In the book of Job, the Leviathan is described as a fire-breathing sea monster, untamable by man or God. Its description resembles ancient sea serpent myths from Babylon and Canaan. Could the Leviathan be a remnant of those earlier stories? The camera zooms in on Job passages, fading to depictions of the Leviathan in art and legend. Or could it be a creature predating creation itself, preserved to remind us that chaos was never fully subdued? The Behemoth enters the narrative. The narrator explains, unlike the Leviathan, the Behemoth is a land-dwelling creature described in Job as unmatched in strength. Its tail moves like a cedar, its power rivaling rivers. Yet, its exact identity remains a mystery. Was it a prehistoric beast, a symbol of natural dominance, or something else entirely? The screen alternates between depictions of ancient megafauna and dramatic animations of the Behemoth. What makes it stand out is its deliberate inclusion in the Bible, an anomaly in an otherwise orderly creation story. Shifting focus to global myths, the narrator says, dragons in Asia, griffins in Greece, and the Sphinx of Egypt, are they simply the product of imagination, or are they echoes of real creatures that inspired awe and fear? The camera pans through ancient temples and artwork showing mythical creatures. Their recurring presence in different cultures suggests something more profound, a shared memory of beings long lost to history, erased, or forgotten. The serpent in Eden is one of the Bible's most intriguing figures. The narrator begins as the screen shows a glowing serpent coiled around the tree of knowledge. It's described as crafty, more intelligent than other creatures. But was it just a snake, or something more sinister? Could it have been an emissary of chaos, sent to disrupt God's perfect creation? The screen fades to ancient serpent myths from different cultures. Across civilizations, serpents symbolize wisdom, rebellion, and transformation. Was the Eden serpent part of this global tradition? The story transitions to the Book of Enoch. Ancient texts like the Book of Enoch describe the Watchers, divine beings who descended to earth. They didn't just corrupt humanity, they tampered with animals, creating hybrids that blurred the line between nature and chaos. The screen shows glowing celestial beings in human form, experimenting with creatures. Could these beings have been responsible for the creatures excluded from the biblical account? The Watchers' actions come to life. The Book of Enoch speaks of the Watchers teaching humans forbidden knowledge, weaponry, astrology, and sorcery. But their greatest transgression wasn't just knowledge. It was the manipulation of life itself. The camera zooms into vivid depictions of hybrid creatures, half-human, half-beast beings that defy natural order. According to the text, these divine beings corrupted the natural world, creating grotesque hybrids that blurred the boundaries of creation. Were these the origins of mythical creatures like the centaur or minotaur? The narrator pauses as the screen reveals a shadowy figure sculpting these hybrids. Could the Watchers' experiments explain the monsters erased from Genesis? If these hybrids existed, they wouldn't just be monsters. They would be symbols of rebellion against divine law, against order. The narrator continues, the Watchers' creations were an affront to God's design, leading to catastrophic consequences. In Genesis, the Great Flood is framed as a way to cleanse the earth of human sin, but could it have been aimed at destroying the unnatural beings created by the Watchers? The camera pans over violent floodwaters, where hybrid creatures struggle to survive. What if Noah's story isn't just about humanity, but also about erasing forbidden creations? The flood ends, but questions remain. The Great Flood was meant to purify. Yet, across cultures, myths of strange beings persist. Did some of the Watchers' creations survive, hidden in the world's remote corners? The narrator speculates as the screen shows mist-covered mountains and deep oceans. Modern cryptids like the Yeti, Nessie, or Chupacabra echo ancient hybrid legends. Could these creatures be remnants of a forgotten age of tampering and chaos? Let's turn to the Sumerians, one of the world's oldest civilizations, the narrator suggests. Their texts speak of gods who descended from the heavens, the Anunnaki. These beings didn't just rule, they shaped life on Earth. Could their advanced knowledge explain some of the creatures we've long called myths? The screen shows ancient tablets covered in Sumerian cuneiform. The Anunnaki's stories suggest they weren't content to observe. They altered life itself, creating hybrids that served their will. Did these gods play a hand in the origins of creatures like griffins or sphinxes? The Anunnaki's experiments come under the lens. Some interpretations suggest the Anunnaki practiced genetic manipulation, blending species to create new forms of life. Consider the Lamassu part bull, part bird, part human. Was it an artistic symbol or a real hybrid created by these advanced beings? The screen shows carvings of Lamassu in ancient ruins. If these creatures existed, they challenge the idea that creation was solely God's work. Instead, life might have been shaped by multiple hands, some divine, some rebellious. The story doesn't stop with the Anunnaki. The narrator continues. Across Egypt, Greece, and India, gods are depicted with animalistic traits. Anubis has the head of a jackal, while Ganesha bears the form of an elephant. Were these beings divine, or were they remnants of ancient genetic experiments? The screen explores artifacts and statues. These cultures revered these beings, perhaps as gods. But what if they were creations beings forged in a time when divine order was being challenged? Exploring myths further, the narrator adds, the Epic of Gilgamesh speaks of Enkidu, a wild man created by the gods to counterbalance Gilgamesh's power. Half human and half beast, he embodies nature's untamed chaos. Were figures like Enkidu unique to Mesopotamia, or did they echo creations across the ancient world? The screen shows a lush wilderness where Enkidu-like figures roam. These stories suggest that hybrid beings weren't just feared, but revered, holding roles in divine and mortal balance. The Leviathan and Behemoth also suggest the remnants of something older than Genesis, the narrator says, as the screen transitions to chaotic biblical imagery. The Leviathan's chaotic nature echoes Babylonian and Canaanite myths, where sea monsters battled gods. Were these creatures integrated into the Bible as relics of older, more chaotic traditions? The narrator pauses as the screen shows a Leviathan etched on ancient tablets. If so, the Bible's creation story isn't just about order, it's about taming the chaos that once ruled the world. The Behemoth story expands. The behemoth is described as a colossal creature, its strength unmatched. Modern interpretations suggest it could be a hippo or elephant, but the Bible's descriptions surpass anything alive today. The screen shows a prehistoric behemoth towering over a landscape. Could it be a relic from a world predating humans, a creature that slipped through the cracks of divine control? The narrative shifts to the serpent in Eden. The serpent's cunning sets it apart. Was it truly a creation of God, or an emissary of rebellion, a being whose very existence challenged divine order? The camera shows ancient serpent carvings from various cultures. In Mesopotamian myths, serpents symbolized wisdom and rebellion. Could the Eden serpent be part of this shared tradition, more than just a simple snake? The narrator introduces the idea of chaos persisting in creation. The Bible acknowledges forces of chaos, like the Leviathan and serpent, but it never fully explains their origins. Could they be remnants of a world where creation wasn't neat and orderly, but wild and untamed? The camera shows fragments of biblical text overlaying images of swirling storms and primordial forests. If chaos is still present, it challenges the idea that creation is a finished, perfect work. The story moves into the Nephilim's impact. The Nephilim, giants born of human and angelic unions, are a central enigma in biblical texts. If they tampered with humanity, could they also have altered animals? Non-canonical texts hint at these beings corrupting all of creation. Imagine the hybrid monstrosities. Such interference might have spawned creatures that blurred the line between man, beast, and divine. The camera pans over ancient depictions of Nephilim towering over humans, with grotesque creatures following in their wake. Did the flood truly wipe them out, or did their legacy survive, hidden in myths of giants and cryptids? Legends of hybrid creatures are not isolated, the narrator continues. Consider the centaur, a half-human, half-horse being, or the Sphinx, guarding secrets in Egypt. These creatures seem too specific, too consistent across cultures, to be mere fantasy. The camera zooms into ancient carvings, showing humans bowing before hybrid gods and creatures. Could they be echoes of a time when beings like the Nephilim tampered with creation, or perhaps remnants of a forgotten experimentation with life itself? Turning to cryptids, the narrator asks, if these hybrids existed in the past, could they still exist today? Creatures like Bigfoot, the Loch Ness Monster, and Mothman evoke fear and wonder. Are they mere folklore, or do they carry traces of ancient genetic manipulation? The screen shows an eerie forest scene where Bigfoot's silhouette looms. If so, these creatures are not just anomalies, but living links to a forgotten chapter of creation. The Anunnaki's influence deepens. The Sumerians described the Anunnaki as powerful beings who descended from the heavens to shape humanity and animals alike. They were said to use advanced techniques, what we might call genetic engineering today. The screen shows tablets depicting gods overseeing the creation of hybrid beings. Were the creatures we now call mythical simply the products of these experiments? If so, the Anunnaki's influence on Earth challenges the idea that God was the sole creator. Linking myths across cultures, the narrator explains, the Greeks believed their gods created animals with specific purposes. Poseidon created horses, while Artemis protected wild creatures. Egyptian gods like Anubis blurred the lines between divine and animal forms. These stories suggest a time when gods actively shaped the natural world. The camera transitions through vivid depictions of gods creating animals, with humans witnessing their work. Were these myths exaggerations of real events, or were they rooted in truths long forgotten? The narrator explores the Leviathan's enduring symbolism. The Leviathan's chaotic presence echoes in myths of sea monsters from Babylon to Scandinavia. But what if it was more than a symbol? Its descriptions of fire and smoke defy natural explanations. Could it be a creature engineered by beings like the Anunnaki or the Watchers? The screen shows overlapping cultural depictions of sea monsters. Or does it represent something older, something predating even divine creation? Revisiting the serpent in Eden, the narrator asks, if the serpent wasn't part of God's perfect creation, where did it come from? Could it have been an agent of rebellion, sent to disrupt divine plans? The screen shows a serpent coiled around the tree of knowledge, glowing ominously. Many ancient myths portray serpents as wisdom bringers or agents of chaos. Was the Eden serpent an invader from another divine realm, or even a creation of the Watchers themselves? Exploring chaos in creation, the narrator continues. The Bible hints that chaos persists even after creation. The Leviathan and Behemoth are untamed forces, challenging the idea of a peaceful, orderly world. Did they symbolize a battle between order and rebellion that continues to this day? The screen transitions between chaotic storms, wild landscapes, and serene biblical depictions, blending disorder with divine order. The conclusion raises deeper questions. What if creation isn't as orderly as we've been told? What if beings like the Anunnaki, Watchers, and Nephilim altered life in ways that challenge biblical narratives? The existence of mythical creatures, hybrids, and chaotic forces suggests a world shaped by more than one divine hand. The screen fades to an ancient text glowing with symbols and images of hybrids. If the truth is more complex than we've been taught, what else might be hidden in the shadows of history?